Don't take this the wrong way, but 9 or so months before you were born, you were only half the person you are now. Hey everybody, Dave here. Today we talk about exactly how you inherited your traits. Each of your biological parents sent down 23 chromosomes to you, and half the genes you needed to be a full human. Together, that made 46 chromosomes and 2 of each gene. You were ready to go. And at that point, almost every genetic trait that you have was determined. So let's look at why. This is a human karyotype, a full set of chromosomes pulled out of the nucleus of a human cell. Don't worry, there are plenty of cells left. We call this the first pair of chromosomes because they are the biggest. There's the one from your biological mom and there's the one from your biological dad. And at the same place on each of those chromosomes is the gene for how your earlobes grow. We don't actually know which gene is in control of earlobes, so let's say it's here on chromosome 1. One version of the gene from your biological mom and one version of the gene from your biological dad. That's right, you have 2 directions for how to grow your earlobes. But remember, there are different versions of that gene, which are called alleles. One allele is recessive and tells your body to grow attached earlobes. The other allele could be dominant and tells your body to grow unattached or free earlobes. Scientists represent these different versions of genes or alleles with uppercase letters for the dominant ones and lowercase letters for the recessive ones. And for this example, I'm going to choose the letter E because it makes sense. And we call the 2 letters that represent your genes your genotype, not to be confused with your phenotype. And that's what the genes physically become on your body. And to find out how this works, take a look at my family ear history, starting with me. I have attached earlobes. That's a recessive trait. And the only way to have the recessive trait is if you have 2 of the recessive alleles, telling my body to grow attached earlobes. And we call this being homozygous recessive. I received those 2 alleles from my parents, one from each of them. And that's my first clue about my parents' earlobes and genes. I know that they both had at least one recessive allele because they had to pass it down to me. And to know their other allele, I simply need to look at my parents. My dad has attached earlobes just like me, so what's his genotype? That's right, he is also homozygous recessive. But what about my mom? She has free or unattached earlobes. So I know that she had one recessive allele, but what's the second one? Well, it has to be the dominant allele, the one that tells her to build free or unattached earlobes. And as long as she has one, then she's going to have the dominant trait. We call this being heterozygous. I kind of love this part of genetics because it's like solving little mysteries using logic. Now, let's imagine that my parents really wanted kids with unattached earlobes. That was their dream in life. Is there any way for them to know what their kids would get? In this case, the answer is no, but they could make an educated guess by doing what's called a Punnett Square. Here are my parents' genotypes, big E for my mom and little e for my dad. There are 4 possible combinations that they could have passed down to me. I could have gotten the big E for my mom here and a little e for my dad there. I could have gotten a little e for my mom here and a little e for my dad there. I could have gotten the big E for my mom and the little e for my dad, and I could have gotten the little e for my mom and the little e for my dad. These are the 4 genotypes that I could have received from my parents. Now, which one did I get? Then that is a total flip of the coin. We have no idea which alleles are going to be passed down from our parents. It's random. But I do know in 2 of the 4 scenarios I'm going to be homozygous recessive, and in 2 of the 4 scenarios I'll be heterozygous. That means I have a 50-50 chance of having the dominant trait or the recessive trait. And that's the beauty of DNA and genetics. We never know what we're going to get. And that leads to an enormous variety of people and traits. And in life, diversity is the key to survival, because that ensures that we'll have the traits we need to live. But if only it were that simple. If you recall, some traits, like skin color, result from over 150 genes.
And to make things even more interesting, there's codominance, where the offspring of a black and white cat is both black and white, not one or the other. And there's incomplete dominance, where the offspring will just be gray.
That happens with our traits as well. That's what makes us so incredibly unique. But you're gonna have to stay tuned for future videos on those, because that's all the time I have for us today. And don't forget, if you ever have any questions or comments, leave them for me. I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. Have a great day.